Alright guys, so today we're going to be taking a look at this Dell Axim X51v PDA. Now, the OG subscribers will remember that about, 6-7 years ago now, I actually had a few Dell PDAs. I had an X3, an X30, and an X50. And I had them for a little while. I got them from my friend Manly, but eventually I ended up giving them to my friend Colin, aka DOSDude1. A lot of you should know who he is by now, but anyhow, I got rid of them. And so a couple of weeks ago, a viewer actually contacted me, based out of New Zealand actually, and they contacted me and they said, hey, I have this Dell Axim X51v, the one you see here. Would you like to buy it off of me? And initially I was kind of like, but then I noticed that, they had all of the original stuff with it and it looked to be in really good shape. And I was like, okay, you know what? Screw it. I'll buy it. And so I did. It took about a week to get here, and here it is. So, again, this is a Dell Axim X51v. I believe this is one of the last PDAs that Dell produced. This was released sometime in 2005, so of course a couple of years before iOS and Android ended up taking over the smartphone industry. And so this was from a time before that. It was still kind of touch-based in that, it had a capacitive or a resistive touchscreen with a stylus, and that was kind of the status quo at the time, if you will. Anyways, so this one is pretty high-end. I believe this is one of the highest-end versions that you could purchase at the time. They offered 3 different ones with different processors and stuff like that. And so this was about as good as you could get before iPhones. And of course, it does run Windows Mobile, which we'll take a look at in a second. You can see that it actually has a Windows XP style design for Windows sticker on the back, kind of interesting. Of course, we just have our touchscreen here. I believe this one is a 3.7 inch, slightly bigger than the X51 and the ones before that. Yeah, and of course the stylus is right here. That's the main form of interacting with the device. Of course, we have a power button at the top. On the top of the actual device, we have a headphone jack. You don't see that anymore. We have a CF card slot, which you can use to plug in accessories like that receiver over there, which I'll show you in a second, and an SD card slot. Now this one included a massive 512 megabyte SD card, so that's pretty interesting, although it's perfect for a device like this. Back here, of course, this is the battery compartment. They said that due to New Zealand customs, they weren't allowed to send the batteries with the unit, but I don't really care because it works perfectly fine off AC power, so that's no big deal to me. Of course, we have our dock connector down here, and some buttons on the front. Pretty standard stuff. But anyhow, the main reason I purchased this, besides this being one of the highest end Dell PDAs you could buy at the time, was that it also included all of this stuff you see behind you. So we have a little Dell sleeve for it. Of course, it fits right in there, kind of like a sleeve holster style thing. Pretty cool. It also has, of course, the adapter for the dock connector in case you want to just plug it right into the power supply instead of using this cradle here. It also came with all of the original documentation. So we have, let me just move this stuff right out of the way. We have the original Getting Started guide, and it even has a product key for Windows Mobile, so that's kind of funny there. Of course, all the original user manuals and stuff, so that was really cool to have. And on top of that, we also happen to have this little CF style GPS module. So of course this is kind of useless now. I plugged it into the device and I don't really see anywhere in the software that allows you to use it, but pretty cool to have there. And it also came with an extra stylus, so that was neat. And of course the cradle, like I mentioned before. So I think for the purpose of demonstrating this device, I'll go ahead and stick it in the cradle. Just make it a little bit easier to demo while we're talking about it here. So as you can see there, that is not the original ROM that was installed on this device. I went ahead and did some digging online, and turns out that, of course, this thing shipped with, I believe, with Windows Mobile 5.0 originally, but there are unofficial builds of Windows Mobile 6.1 for it, and that's what I've chosen to put on here. Of course, a lot of indie developers were actually working on making this work. So anyways, this is running a full version of Windows Mobile 6.1 Classic, I believe. So of course it is a little bit more visually appealing in that this came out in 2000, I believe 6.1 came out in 2008, but the original Windows Mobile 6 came out in 2007, and of course it was designed to look like the then newly released Windows Vista. So again, a little bit more visually appealing. It is definitely skeuomorphic because that was the thing at the time. But yeah, we'll go ahead and take a look at it here. So yeah, so we have our start menu up here. We can go ahead and take a look at, let me zoom in a little bit more. Go ahead and take a look at our programs here. Pretty interesting to look at, to be honest. Of course, I used to have a couple of older versions that had like Windows Mobile 2003, and they didn't look quite as advanced as this. You know, this one does include a couple of extra options. I believe this quick menu thing isn't a part of Windows Mobile, although I could be wrong because I didn't really get into smartphones until the iPhone. But if we go into our programs here, we can see we have quite a few things on here. This one actually, like I said, does include things like this YouTube player down here. Of course, that doesn't work anymore because it's so old, but yeah, it's kind of neat to look at. So the first thing I guess I want to go ahead and demonstrate here, and I'll just look at the About menu. So of course, like I said, Windows Mobile 6.1 Classic, we are running an Intel PXA 270 processor, and it is running at 624 megahertz, which is the fastest I believe you could get at the time. This one does have 64 megs of RAM, which I am able to look at, I believe. There we go. So again, like I said, there's the specs again. This is the Lenny SH custom ROM that was built for this device. So again, like I said, that's why it had that custom boot screen and stuff. Of course, this ROM I believe is from around 2008, so old stuff. I was actually pretty lucky I could find it online. But anyway, I believe the other thing that I will mention is we can try browsing the internet with this thing. Okay, I had to pause for a minute to get it connected to the Wi-Fi, but of course the internet doesn't work too well on a device like this anymore. It's really old, but we will go ahead and do it for the sake of the video. I'll go ahead and load up Internet Explorer here. And as you can see, that is the default website, but I can go ahead and type in Google here. If you give it enough time, it will eventually pull up Google. So if I go ahead and collapse the keyboard here, there it is, Google. So let's go ahead and see if I can actually load anything else. Let's go ahead and load Dell. Boom. And of course, the website formatting could use some work. Of course, this is really old, and so it doesn't really look too well. But as you can see, we have a very, very basic form of the internet. So anyways, that's about it. That's all I really wanted to show on this thing. Again, it's not really useful all that much today, but it's kind of a cool relic from the past just to kind of see how mobile computing was before the age of modern smartphones like we have now. Thank you guys for watching this video. I figured it'd be a little bit of an interesting throwback, and I'll see you later.